Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and if you don't know, then this is actually a really huge news to you, I guess, and that's that rotation is coming up in the Pokemon TCG. It actually already happened in Japan, and it's going to be coming up soon in not Japan, everywhere else, in the US, and just in the TPCI, the international territory. And pretty much what happens is that all the cards from the F rotation block are going away. You cannot play them in the standard format anymore, so the ones with F in the lower left-hand corner here, aka all the Sword and Shield era cards that are legal in standard now, you won't be able to play anymore. This is accompanied by a new set. That's because, Pokemon wants to keep the metagame, I guess, fresh, or maybe they just want to keep making money. It's probably a mixture of all of the above, but regardless, that's what's happening. There are a few cards that are staying in the game, like, for example, I believe Boss's Orders has an F regulation on some of its prints, but it's been reprinted since then, so you can still play it. And there are a few cards like that. But the bulk are rotating, including the first one we got here, Mirage Gate. And all the cards I'm going to be talking about today are cards that are good, and are also cards that you will probably want to play at some point post rotation in some sense as well, but you won't be able to. So I'm going to be talking about the best replacements for that, starting with Mirage Gate, which is a card that it's a Lost Zone card. All the Lost Zone cards, if you don't know, are rotating. The entire mechanic is just going to leave the game. It's a mechanic that comes around every once in a while, and we might see it again, but all the cards from Lost Zone will be rotating, and we're not getting any, at least in the first set. But this what it does is you accelerate energy. That's the big thing. It's of two different types, and you attach it to your Pokemon any way you like. And you can only use this if you have 7 or more cards in the Lost Zone. So it's only played within Lost Zone decks. It's really played within the Lost Zone box deck, I guess. But it's in Giratina VSTAR, which is like similar. And then there are some variants as well. Um, there are like a few weird variations of Lost, and then it'll pop up in as well. But the big idea is that you want to use it to power up things like, for example, Pikachu EX. There's Radiant Greninja, which is rotating from the format. We are losing that. Blood Marceluna EX earlier, Iron Hands EX as well. You could say any form of energy acceleration, like, say, Baxcalibur. I don't think Baxcalibur is going to be very good post rotation. And looking at data from post rotation, it's not, but it's not completely unplayable. But I think the closest card is actually Glass Trumpet, which is a pretty weird card, but it lets you accelerate 2 basic energy from now your discard pile, which is probably worse than the deck, but it's not that much worse, especially with Earthen Vessel. And then you attach them to your benched colorless Pokemon, so 2 separate Pokemon, and you also need a Terra Pokemon in play. Now, having a Terra Pokemon in play is way easier than having 7 cards in the Lost Zone, but only being able to accelerate the colorless Pokemon is a bit of a downside. I've played a bunch of Glass Trumpet in a bunch of different decks, and it's kind of I was gonna say it's bad. It's not the best. Looking at these decks, oh wow, it's like only in Palkia. That's like in-person tournaments and pretty good placings. In City Leagues, we can see a bit more of a variety, and these City Leagues are post-rotation as well. So if you are looking for post-rotation tournaments in deck lists, this is the place I'd go to look. And we see it in some Raging Bolt lists because you can get value out of it there, but that's a little bit different. It's not like powering up your attacker. Then we have the evolution deck. This one I actually think is almost kind of similar to Lost Zone. Oh, I I just clicked on a random list. I didn't know it would be in it. Apparently there's a Greninja EX and a Tapu Koko EX, and there's a lot of stuff here. But use Glass Trumpet. Only one in this list, but I'm surely there's more. Okay, this one has 2. Um, Anyways, it's useful for powering up your Pokemon, and compare with Energy Switch to put the energy onto the same Pokemon. This isn't super nice and easy. Crispin in some ways is easier as well. This is 2 different types of basic energy. They have to be different types. And if there's only one, Mirage Gate could get that. Crispin cannot. Crispin is from the deck, but it's a supporter. So I'd say Glass Trump is more similar. But Crispin's a card that's pretty dynamic. But you can't like play a bunch to burst a bunch of energy onto the board. So some differences there. But Crispin and Glass Trumpet do fulfill similar roles to Mirage Gate. Again, rotating cards are the ones I've talked about are good, and the cards that are replacing them are not necessarily as good. But I think Glass Trumpet is probably the best card if you want a similar feel, and that does something similar and can power up some of those basics like Trap Ghost EX or Blood Mirror Saloon EX if you want to. And with Energy Switch, you can get the energy where you want it. Again, that's not super easy, but you have that like kind of combo-y nature that you have in Lost Zone box as well. So I actually think it is a pretty good fit. I've enjoyed playing with Glass Trumpet pre-rotation a lot, and I enjoy Mirage Gate. I don't love the inconsistency of Mirage Gate or Glass Trumpet, but they both have it. The next card we're talking about is Regidrago VSTAR. This one's like really good. I mean, right now it's decent. I haven't been playing too much live. I played it some, but I've been playing some still, and I've been seeing Regidrago, but not to the level at which I was maybe a little bit before then. But still, Regidrago VSTAR is one of the best. It's been one of the best decks in the game this past year. And what it does is it copies attacks from Dragon Pokemon in the discard pile. And it's a V-Star, and it has a V-Star power. So, like, all this stuff is leaving the game. I mean, Dragon Pokemon are still in the game, but copying Dragon Pokemon is leaving the game. There isn't anything else like this. However, I think there's one card that actually is similar to Regidrago V-Star in actually a lot of ways, which is Ends Zoroark EX. Um, there we go. I found it. And this is not out yet, but it will be out with rotation. And it's attack Night Joker for 2 darkness. Choose one of your benched ends Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. Then it says you must discard a card to your hand in order to use this ability for your ability trade, and you get to draw 2 cards. In some ways, trade reminds me a little bit of Regidrago V-Star's V-Star power. It's not that similar, and we'll actually talk about trade in just a moment. But Night Joker here lets you copy attacks, and these are Pokemon, and they have certain attacks and certain attack costs, but you ignore the attack cost, just like with Regidrago V-Star. Now, they're different, right? Obviously, this needs the Pokemon in play. It's a very specific set of Pokemon, kind of like Regidrago V-Star, but it is a card that is going to be able to um, copy attacks, and it just is a similar card, though certainly not identical, and certainly worse as well. I think it's okay. We might end up getting more ends Pokemon in the future. There's a few. There's a spread one, and there are some ones that do different amounts of damage output, and so that's something that you might find familiar with the Regidrago V-Star deck. It's kind of hard to replace a whole deck that's rotating, but I do think this is the best thing for those players. Next, we have Kirlia. Kirlia has its ability discard 1, draw 2, and this card is good, specifically within Gardevoir EX, mostly because it evolves from the same line. Um, so that's like not something that you have with Enzoric EX, but you could just replace the Kirlias with Enzoric EXs and like do stuff like that, which is something we have actually seen in Japan, like a little bit. I mean, it's not amazing, but it is something that I've seen in like a couple of lists that this one came forth in a presumably 64-person tournament. Just replaces doesn't really play the Curlias, plays some differences, plays more rare candies, I guess. Um, Plays a stadium, so your Enzoric EX doesn't get stuck in the active because it's got a 2 retreat cost and it's never going to attack because you can't really get the energy on. You could do 20 by copying your one on the bench with for the 2 darkness, but you're ignoring the attack, just using the ability, and you still do have that ability now if you want it in the deck. You're also losing Light Pride if you didn't know, so if you want to replace Light Pride with something, that would also be Enzoric EX. The next card we're talking about though is Double Turbo Energy. Double Turbo Energy is arguably the biggest loss. I don't think it is, but it's a pretty big loss still. And it's 2 colorless energy. You do 20 less, which isn't ideal, but I mean this card's really good, right? If you've played Standard since it's been out, you've probably played this card. It's not like the best card in the I mean, it's very good, right? You could play it in, for example, a control list. Um, and I mean, this is obviously, control with rotation is gonna look pretty different. I might be covering that in a future video. And then Terapagos EX is a deck that really needs it. It only runs double turbo. Control is pretty reliant on double turbo as well, not gonna lie. And then you also have something like Iron Thorns, like doesn't really need it that much. Lugia certainly does, but like it's rotating. So Yeah, I guess I need to talk about what the replacement is for Lugia, but I don't know what it is at the moment. So I was brainstorming the things I was going to talk about. It's like, I need to talk about Lugia Archeops. So actually comment that down below because I don't really play that much Lugia or that there are decks that similar to it. Like, I guess Archeops is kind of like Baxcalibur or something. Not really, though. And obviously, Chinchino needs the special energy, so I don't really know what's similar to this, but if you have any ideas, let me know down below in the comments. Then there's Cloth as well, is losing, double turbo, and that needs it. That's played with Trapagos, and it's played in various different decks. It's a very good card. It's seen play in lots of different things throughout its history in the standard format as well, in like Arceus and UV Max decks. Arceus V-Star is rotating, but is still in the game. UV Max certainly is not in the game right now, but double turbo energy. I think the best replacement for it is going to be actually counter gain. Theoretically, you could use like a Neo Upper Energy, or even Sparkling Crystal is actually pretty similar, but counter gain here is a card that reduces your attack cost by one colorless energy if you're down on prizes. And that means that if you attach a regular energy, then all of a sudden your attack cost is just like it's the same thing as double turbo. It is two cards, but coding and searchable off of Arvin, which is like way easier to use than to find a special energy, which it is possible to find them. There's Energy Lotto, which yeah, I have no idea what set Energy Lotto came in. Um, that was in Astral Radiance. So apparently that's also rotating, I guess. I don't really play this card that much. I usually just find it with there's Closet to Nasty, and there's also like just Pidgeotto X, but Counter Gain is way easier to search. So I think this card's really, really solid and not that bad of a replacement. Obviously, it is a tool. So if you want another tool, like for example with Cloth, that you can also put on binding Mochi or something else onto your Pokemon, onto the Cloth or whatever you're attacking with, which is a bit of an issue, but still, Counter Gain I think is an awesome replacement for Double Turbo, and it's not actually like that big of a. I mean, it is a big loss, but I think you can get by with this. Next up, we got Rotom V. Rotom V is a card that lets you draw a bunch of cards, three to be exact, and then you end your turn. And it's an ability that you can use from the bench. I don't think there's anything exactly like Rotom V that I could think of off the top of my head. It was even like that similar. The one that I think is the closest, though, is Cleffa. Cleffa is a card that has seen a bunch of play in a bunch of different decks, including Charizard, which is where you see a lot of Rotom V as well. Cleffa isn't a card that's like at the same level as Rotom V, but I do believe it is the closest card. So we see, for example, this list here plays a Cleffa and a Rotom V. Obviously, Cleffa, I mean, it doesn't have an ability, it has its attack, a draw till you have 7 cards in hand. It's a single prizer with 30 HP. It's a baby. You can only use it going second, not going first. You need to be in the active, but it does have free attack. So it's actually pretty similar and can draw you more cards. I think Cleffa, if you like Rotom V for its draw ability, then Cleffa is right there in terms of power. It's not quite as good. It's a little less versatile. And the big thing is you can't use Force Seal Stone. Force Seal Stone is also rotating. Force Seal Stone's arguably it's definitely the best tool in the game right now. But that will be rotating, and that gives a lot of value to Rotom V. But still, Cleffa, if you want to replace it for Rotom V, I think it's the way to go, and is even kind of an alternative now. Then we have Manaphy. This just gives you bench barrier. There is a Thunderous, which is actually like really bad, but it is bench barrier, but it's only if it's in the active, which is bad. And its attacks, because your opponent could gust around it, which is like not what you want. And then also its attack is like kind of bad because it puts itself to 20 HP after it attacks once, and then if it attacks again, it knocks itself out. So it's not really a viable Pokemon. I don't apparently some people have played it. It can do some cool things. Oh, one person has played it. Someone played in Japan. Yeah, a few people have, but it's not the strongest card. However, there's Rabsca. Rabsca is also not like amazing, but Rabsca does. It actually has the same HP, which is kind of bad. Well, as bad because it's a stage one. That's the big downside. It gives bench barrier, which stops damage, and also it stops effects here of attacks done to your bench Pokemon. This is really nice for stopping Dragapult EX. In fact, that's the reason why it sees some play. It doesn't see that much play because it's a card that takes some time to set up. So even if your opponent does have a bench spread attack, they might actually just be able to wipe you out before you can get going to stop it. But still, Rabsca is a card that is definitely decent, and one that you do want to be keeping an eye out for. I would not be shocked if we see another bench barrier style card or Wave Veil style card. Wait, is it Wave Veil or Aqua Veil? I think it's Wave Veil. Um, yeah, it's Wave Veil. But regardless, I would not be shocked if we see one this year in like the second or third set of the year. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's what we saw actually previously. Manaphy came out. Um, I believe it came out like a couple of months after rotation, like a good few months. I think it was like 2 sets, but rotation was at a different time, so it's really complicated, or it's not that complicated, but it's more complicated than it needs to be. So, I would be expecting a bench barrier card, like a basic bench barrier card, soon, but right now Rabsca is okay. You can combo with Team Evolution to get that bench barrier effect up, a turn one going second if you want as well. So it's not bad. It's okay, and definitely one that you want to at least keep in the back of your mind if you need it. I've definitely seen it in lots of rogue decks and standard right now. Then Hisuian Heavy Ball. Hisuian Heavy Ball, I've talked about this card a bunch. We talked about rotation, not like stressing it a ton, but it is a card that you're gonna probably kind of notice the loss of, but only kind of because it's a card that isn't really at the center point of any deck, or it doesn't even seem that important a lot of the time, but it lets you get a basic from your face down prizes. It also says that you're now able to look at all of them, right? You look at all of them, which is nice if you want to check your prizes. You can check by just like counting all the cards in your deck and then figuring out what's not there. And that's like, especially in Pokemon TCG Live, it's not like that bad, but also it's not like usually I like put in some amount of effort to do it, and not gonna lie, I don't always do that. I usually check like a couple of things, but this is way easier. You just like look at it, and most people you just use a Syrian Heavy Ball, and then normally with deck searches they'll check if they got their attacker or whatever. But yeah, this is leaving the game. So there's a new card called Exchange Ticket, which is again not out, or is that what it's called? That's how it's translated. Trainer names might get changed, but what they do is certainly set. And it says after counting your prizes, you shuffle them, put them on the bottom of your deck, then take that many cards from the top of your deck and put them as your face down prize cards. So it just resets your prizes. I believe it's like I think it's Rotom decks, something like that. But that doesn't really matter. That card isn't expanded, but Exchange Ticket will not end up put the other one just shuffled it into your deck. So theoretically, you could like prize a card and then you could reprise it with the Rotom decks, but I should check to make sure I'm saying the right card. Yeah, so you'd count your prizes and then shuffle them into your deck and then take that many from the top. So you could prize the same card. And this card saw some play. It wasn't like an amazing card, but it was okay. Exchange Ticket, though, is like really the only option. There were certainly, and are still other options in Expanded. There were not really other options in Standard after this rotates that I can think of. There were probably some like weird attacks and stuff like that, but like pretty weird. They're not, nothing super easy there, I don't think. So Exchange Ticket is a card. It's seen some play in Japan, not that much, right? This is, just a little bit here, but it is a card that if you are really scared about prizing, and really, want certain cards out of your prizes, then this is a card you want to prioritize. Obviously, Hisuian Heavy Ball almost acts as a basic search type card, generally getting you a basic, not necessarily the one that you want, but it'll get you one semi-commonly. This is not that. It doesn't let you look at them. You don't know what the new ones are. You need to like prize check, and it's way funkier, but it does allow you to get stuff out of your prizes and actually just let you get anything out of them, which is nice. So, for example, I saw it in Goldango. Goldango is actually pretty nice. Goldango, if you don't know, plays Energy Search Pro, which gets every type of basic energy out of your deck. But what if one's prized? Well, you're not going to reprize one of the other ones because they'll probably all be in the discard pile or in your hand, hopefully. So then you're going to be able to use the exchange ticket and then put the that prized energy into your deck and not send other energy of the same type or of like unique types into your deck or into your prizes. So that will allow you to have like control over that, and you can find the cards that were just from the prizes popped onto the bottom of your deck using like Earthen Vessel or whatever. Hopefully you'll be able to find that. Maybe you will not, but you can also control your prizes. Exchange Ticket is a card that lets you, I believe you like choose the like you kind of choose the order of the prizes. So then you also are able to choose if you use like say for my next code breaking or something that controls the top of your deck, you can kind of know some of your prizes as well, which is really cool. So some cool combos and synergy here. It's not really super similar to Hisuian Heavy Ball, but I think it is the best replacement and it offers some new value as well. Next up, we got Raikou V, a pretty specific card here. Raikou V allows you to go ahead and draw a card, but that's not what we're talking about. What we are talking about is the Lightning Rondo attack, 20 more for each bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponents. There are two cards that are similar to this. There's Lily's Clefairy EX that is literally like the same attack, except it's psychic, and actually has less HP. Has a really unique ability as well that's like insane against well, I guess against Regidrago, but that's rotating, but it's insane against Dragapult. Well, theoretically, it's insane against Dragapult, but then it will get one-shotted by him. But regardless, you got that there. And that's fair. I'd say it's actually better comp there to Entei V because that's more of like a main attacker type Pokemon, and Liz Clefairy X can be that, or a support Pokemon for just its ability. And then you also have Raikou V, though, as an attacker within Miraidon is a really common thing, and obviously, you mentioned for Seal Stone, and that's really important for Raikou V as well. But ignoring that aspect, you do have the new Tapu Koko EX. And this Tapu Koko EX is a card that actually is for your treat, has the same HP and does 60, 20 more for each of your bench Pokemon. And this isn't necessarily like quite as strong all the time, but it is still pretty good. It's probably going to be hitting a pretty similar amount of damage, and you can fill your bench and do big damage. So Tapu Koko EX is still a like a decent card that you could be playing in actually a few different decks. We see it in a bunch of Flareon decks in Japan, which Flareon is definitely it's a legit deck, I guess. I mean, I don't think it's that good, but seeing play in Japan. So Tapu Koko, though, is a card you can play in your Miraidon decks to replace your Raikou V. If you want, you don't have to, but you can. And it'll do some stuff. It's not doing all the stuff, but it is going to do a good chunk of the damage. So, might be what you want. And it's a 2 energy attacker. That's the big thing. Raikou V fills that role really well of being a 2 energy attacker. The other one, I guess, is like Raichu V. I hope I said the right ones. Raichu V is the one that does a lot of damage though, but it's not like actually 2 energies because you need a bunch of energies on other Pokemon or maybe itself. So Raikou slash Tapu Koko EX are the Pokemon that you can use as your like quick attackers when things aren't going 100% where you don't have all your energies on the board, still kind of setting up and stuff like that. Lost Vacuum is another really important card, which allows you to bump tools and stadium cards. And this is like another one that's I think going to go under the radar is a pretty big loss. It sees a lot of play. Maybe it's not under the radar, but it's very good and not a card that I hear much talk about at all. I mean it's some, but not anywhere near the amount of play it gets. Where it's probably like it might be a top 10 played card in the game right now, but then I think the best replacement for it is going to be actually a stadium card, which is a jamming tower. A jamming tower does allow you to turn off tools and actually forces all tools off, including your own, which is kind of bad. That's a big issue. Another issue is stadiums are hard to search out than than items, but it could be nice, right? It directly is a stadium bump. It's kind of weird. It's probably worse than jamming tower, or no, it's worse than Lost Vacuum because your opponent can also bump this, but it still, I think, is the best replacement. There are like there's a supporter I think that does this, but it's not great. The new Ruffian supporter I believe does a tool and a special energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon, but I don't love that. There's also an ace spec, but I mean like that's an ace spec, right? So Lost Vacuum is a bit of a loss, no pun intended. I do believe that decks will be okay without it, and it's not going to like shake things up too much, but you do have a higher chance of your specifically tools staying in play, and probably stadiums as well. To be honest, they're not that much higher for stadiums. Then Lumineon V is the last card I have here. Not entirely sure the best replacement. Lumineon V searches for a supporter. I just say you should chuck a bunch of Pokegears in your deck, which that's not rotating, right? Yeah, no, it's not. I was like, that'd be terrible advice if I said just replace it with another card that's rotating. Yeah, so Pokegear gets a supporter from the top 7 cards of your deck, which I think is fine. I'm not a big Pokegear person or a big Lumineon V person, but yeah, Lumina V obviously, same thing I said before. It's good with the Vs. It's good for Force Heal Stone, but Pokegear is a really nice consistency booster that some people really enjoy. I personally don't, but I know some people like it. 4 different styles of decks, and it's not the same as Lumineon V, but does give you more options in supporter heavy decks. Lumineon V is sometimes a card used to fetch out very specific supporters, which Pokegear doesn't necessarily do. But if you have a bunch of copies, you'll have like a decent chunk of like a decent chance of hitting it. But Lumen Envy, I don't have a great suggestion for. I guess also Pidgeot EX is a good replacement. It's not really a replacement, but it's a card that does allow you to find certain specific cards, including supporters, and that's not an uncommon thing for Pidgeot EX either. But anyways, tell me down below in the comments what cards you're most sad are rotating, right? Or most excited are rotating, and how many of these replacement options you're going to use. If I missed any as well, that would be better replacements. But I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all that good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.